Good afternoon. There you go. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the House Regulated Industries Committee. We've got a very short agenda today. Nothing very controversial in these bills. Senator Hodges, I'm going to let you go first, because Senator Williams is a product of this committee, and he knows how we operate, so his is pretty simple too. You would present Senate Bill 370.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, colleagues. I do bring to you today Senate Bill 370. It is a bill from the governor, and more importantly, from the First Lady. They're building on the First Lady's work with the Grace Commission. This bill tries to continue the Grace Commission's charge of bringing awareness to and one day doing away with human trafficking. This bill is simple. Primarily what it does, it adds convenience stores, body art studios, also known, you might know them as tattoo parlors, and businesses that employ licensed massage therapists, as well as manufacturing facilities, to the list of businesses that must post the human trafficking notice. And you should have that, I think, in your package. Looks like this. It's pretty simple. The GBI publishes this and makes it available, and it is to be posted in the businesses that the legislation requires. It gives 2 hotline telephone numbers for anybody who frequents one of these businesses and who might be being trafficked for labor servitude or sex servitude. Gives them a couple of numbers to call and information to try to help them out. The legislature passed some legislation, I think back in 2013 originally, that required these businesses to post this. Adult entertainment establishments, bars, primary airports, passenger rail or light rail stations, bus stations, truck stops, emergency rooms with general acute care hospitals, urgent care centers, farm labor contractors and day haulers, and privately operated job recruitment centers. And then last year we passed some legislation. That legislation didn't really have any teeth in it. It required posting, but there was, no consequences if a business didn't post. So last year we passed some legislation to provide a minimum fine, $500 for a first offense and $1,000 for a second offense. And so this year, this bill that we're bringing, as I said, it adds convenience stores, tattoo parlors, licensed massage therapist business, and manufacturing facilities to that list. Additionally, the board allows the Georgia Board of Massage Therapy to initiate inspections of licensed massage therapy businesses, and also to inspect their required board-recognized human traffic education programs. It also requires massage therapists to affix a passport-size photo to their license certificate that's displayed in their place of work. And then finally, it requires massage therapy board members, there are 5 board members on the massage therapy board, to complete annual human traffic awareness training of 30 minutes annually. We don't feel that this is overly burdensome to the business community, and you would think that in this day and time we wouldn't have to worry about human slavery, but we do. And this act is a help to try to make it harder for that business to exist and to bring it to an end. And Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Also, if you like, I can go basically through the bill, through the sections.
Well, I don't think it's that complicated.
Okay.
We do have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Number 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I appreciate this bill. Thank you for this. But I do have a question around the making this mandatory because I have been to some of these places. For example, I recently went to urgent care to get my COVID booster shot, and I did not see this. I went to the airport, pick up one of my adult children that's in college, came home for spring break, did not see this. So what is the mechanism? Because you're right, this has been effective for 11 years now, since September 2013, but I just do not see these postings on some of the locations that you have listed.
Well,
what's the mechanism there?
Well, Representative, good question. The legislation requires that the notice be posted in restrooms and it be posted in, quote, a prominent position. The mechanism would be a law enforcement officer being on the premises and not seeing the posting, and then the law enforcement officer could and should bring an action. Actually, you've got the law enforcement officer would put business on notice that they're not posting. They'd have 30 days to post, to cure, if you would. And then law enforcement officer would come back, and if they still weren't posted, they'd be subject to misdemeanor and a minimum $500 fine. So the mechanism that you're asking about is law enforcement.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Number 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think that that's great because right now on the news we recently passed some legislation. I know the city of Atlanta is doing something where if people are going too fast or doing things that they shouldn't do in school zones, the community does not like the fact that the city is making money off of these passive violations. And so if the city wants to make money, now they can enforce these laws. And if these postings are up in places and prominent, then they won't be fined. So I guess it's really a comment to say thank you for saying that. So law enforcement will be more prone to make sure that we're keeping Georgia citizens safe.
Thank you, Representative.
Number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. You may can answer this. You may not be able to answer it, but I see that the list of places that are required to post. Have any discussion about pawn shops being included in this?
No, sir. In the work that the Grace Commission did, I don't remember seeing any mention of pawn shops, but that's a good point.
And I just know when desperate people fall on hard times, a lot of things happen, and I just was curious if that'd been discussed.
It has not.
All right. I have a question I want to ask, if you don't mind. I know the purpose of these, but it's been a while since I looked at this. But it's supposed to be this poster that you've given us. It's
Yes,
supposed
sir.
to be placed in the restrooms.
It's supposed to be placed in restrooms and a, quote, prominent place.
Does that mean all restrooms? When
I
you
don't-
look at some of these facilities that's listed in the current language, they have multiple restrooms. And this is to follow up on an earlier conversation from our member. Is it any restroom or
Mis-
a restroom or all
Mr.
restrooms?
Mr. Chairman, I believe, if I remember, I read the original bill, and I believe that it just said the restroom.
The restroom. Second thing that I'd like to ask is on line 41 where you've got hotels. A hotel and a motel are considered as two different things, basically by the design and whatever they call themselves. But we've got hotel. Should we not amend that to place hotels or motels?
not familiar of the legal difference between a hotel and a motel. There very well may be one, Mr. Chairman. I'm not. But if that is the case,
And then last but not least, possibly, I noticed one of the primary places that folks go to for medical attention,
I didn't hear you.
one of the places that people go to, I see the litany of different places that are listed to post this sign and phone number. But to me, one of the things that's glaringly missing is medical offices. Because people go to these medical offices, a lot of times these are the abused people that are used for trafficking. Should that not also be included, medical offices?
I don't see any reason not to. And, you know, I would just note that, again, this year we're adding some things that weren't there last year. So it wouldn't surprise me if we continue to build on this.
If I might defer to our legal counsel, Sean Marie, where it's got hotels, is there a general or by code, is there a description of that, or should that, the term motel be included to bring all of this into?
So in that code section, there is a definition of hotel already, and that means any hotel, inn, or other establishment which offers overnight accommodations to the public for hire. And you asked a question about the restaurant, and it does say each restaurant.
Each restroom? All right. We got a lot of people that aren't in compliance then, don't we? All right. Number 25.
Ms. Lee, I was just looking at the poster here. Something that I would suggest maybe to take back to the Grace Commission too is, you know, in our society through COVID of not touching menus, and like when you go to restaurants, everything's QR coded. And I did, you know, just having a QR code on this that, you know, quick picture to take that would expedite making that phone call than looking for the number in the print that could speed things up to somebody could really take a picture and take it with them, or, you know, to maybe it's not the right time to call, but at least they got a picture of that QR code. Just want to make that suggestion since our society is using that in most every business now.
Excellent suggestion, Representative. I
Follow up
appreciate
on that question, Senator. Do you know, do the Grace Commission, do they furnish these posters or to be sent out, or?
It's my understanding that the GBI does, and that the GBI has this on their website, and it's a responsibility of the business owner to go to the website and to reproduce it and to post it.
All right. Number 28.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After Ledge Council read the definition of a hotel, motel, or other place for public accommodation, it does beg the question, would this apply to Airbnb and VRBO situations? Knowing that people are oftentimes renting out their private residences and much more less likely to be aware of this, but would you want to specifically exclude Airbnb? Oh, that, what's the proper terminology? Shared short-term rentals.
Sean Marie.
Certainly, if that's the will of the committee, that is something you could do. I would just caution that it looks like most of these places are places that could be frequented by the public, like they could come in and out of. And it also, the enforcement is that an officer actually views that there's not a poster. And so in terms of enforcement, if it is within a private home that might be rented, while it might be rented to the public, it would be like on a case-by-case basis. That I'm not sure if the enforcement piece, how that would work
So
on a regular basis.
Follow-up question. So, first of all, I applaud this this effort to stop human trafficking in Georgia. I want to be 1,000% supportive of that. But given the fact that so many people do use short-term rentals through the internet, maybe a further consideration next time around, we take a look at this bill, that we might include mandatory language with the Airbnbs, the VRBOs, or whomever these people are. Mandatory language is basically a checkoff that you're aware that this is a big problem in Georgia. Some sort of wording to this effect before a customer rents a unit in Georgia.
You know,
It wouldn't cost anything from a technology
agree.
standpoint, and make it just further pushes the message further out that Georgia's not going to tolerate it.
I appreciate that point of view, Representative. I understand that the GBI has purview over reproducing this list, and they could add whatever language that that we could discuss with them to add additional language.
All right. Number 23.
I was just going to respond to Chairman Williamson down there. I think with the short-term rentals, with those being private, still being private property, we never made them do that on the COVID vaccine. If you remember, it was always public places, and I think that's kind of what this idea here was just kind of the same public places that we're doing, because it is a private entity, private. Citizens are renting those out, so I don't know that if they wanted to, they can go on there and print these out and put them up, if I'm not mistaken. But at the proper time, I'd make a motion.
All right, we'll move on into the rest of it. I had also made mention about the medical offices. Does that not seem to be a proper place?
Well, it's in here.
It is in here?
Yeah, on that. It's on line 36, 37. Yeah.
36 and what?
37. It's already in current law.
That's not medical office, that's urgent care centers and emergency rooms with general acute care hospitals. I can't imagine somebody that's trafficking people for sex would go to, and they'd probably go into the smaller doctor's offices, probably.
Mr. Chairman, another thought about that would be if a trafficker's got a person being trafficked and they need medical attention and they take them to an emergency room, they're going to have to pay for them. They take them to a medical office, they are going to have to pay for them. So I think that might be one of the reasons that, that the emergency room is included.
All right, do we have any other questions from the members? If not, since we have bypassed the subcommittee process on these first of the simple bills of the Senate bills, I'm going to allow for comments from anybody here in attendance, as long as they can keep it under 60 seconds. If you can't say it in 60 seconds, no need in worrying about it, because we know the subject matter. Yes,
I'm in
sir.
full agreement with that, Mr. Chairman, and I was first on the list, so I hope you don't mind my stepping up. My name is Taylor Hawkins with Frontline Policy Council. Our organization exists to protect family and Christian values in public policy and politics across our state. One of our chief goals is to protect the human dignity of every single individual, and that is core to who we are as an organization. And it goes without saying, the issue we're discussing, the buying and selling of human beings, is a grave trespass on that dignity and is a heinous crime. So we're excited about the work of Senator Hodges, of the Grace Commission, and of our First Lady and the Governor's Office as well in bringing this piece of legislation. We think it's an excellent piece of legislation, particularly the education piece, the increased accountability, and the enabling of immediate inspections to ensure compliance. I think that is something that is a big step forward. It's estimated that over 9,000 illicit massage parlors across the United States exist that participate in some degree or enable human trafficking on their premises. So this is a grave issue. It's the number 3 in the top 3 sort of industries, if you will, that are generally tied in with human trafficking. So we're appreciative of the work to make sure that we can catch the bad actors in this state, prosecute those to the full extent of the law, and ensure that we protect victims as much as possible. So we would urge this committee to pass this excellent piece of legislation, and thank the Senator, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to testify.
Thanks, Taylor. Julianne McConnell.
Thank you. I'm here today, I represent Street Grace, and we're the faith-based organization that was created back in 2009. So we've been working, fighting sex trafficking and trying to enhance our laws since that time. I also serve on the CJCC, the statewide Human Trafficking Task Force, as well as the Coalition, where we work very closely with the First Lady and the Grace Commission. And so this is a top priority of ours, and we certainly do support the legislation and appreciate Senator and the Governor and First Lady bringing this before the committee today. Thank you.
All right. That's pretty good. Two people. All right, any question? Number 6. I knew it was too good to be true.
You know it, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you holding up the hearing for me. But, Senator, thank you for this legislation, and I know you're a little too young to remember, but it would have been good if this had been around in the old S&S truck stop days. Never too late to do good.
I hate to tell you, Representative.
Don't tell it all, though.
But
go
I
ahead.
do remember, yes, that's truck stop.
All right.
All right. To the previous question, there's 9,000 illicit massage parlors in the country. You know how many are in Georgia?
About 8,600.
You know how many are down on the coast? If you please give that information to Representative Williams, so he'd be sure to check them out and be sure that they have a license. All right. All right, this is the proper time for a motion. We have a motion. We have a second. Now, any discussion, any amendments?
I'd like to move to amend by adding, below line 49, 18, add medical offices to that.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Do we have any further discussion or any? I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Next, any further discussion, any further amendments? If not, we have a motion and a second to amend as a committee substitute. Senate Bill 370. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Senator, could you tell us who do you have planned to carry this bill in the House?
Sue Hong.
Sue Hong. Very good.
Representative Hong.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Sure.
Good
Thank
to
you, Mr.
see.
Chairman.
Good to see you this morning,
Always good to see
afternoon.
you. Thank you.
All
Appreciate it.
right, next bill up, Senate Bill 205. Our good friend Senator Williams, former vice chairman of this committee.
Thank
We
you,
have
Mr.
before you
Chairman.
Senate Bill 205.
LC number 365496, is that correct?
That is correct.
This bill passed before last session, but the Attorney General's office found it needed 3 words to make it complete. That's on line 13. Starts there, or has allowed. And what this basically is doing is someone that has allowed their funeral director license to lapse. In 1976, the law changed that in order to be a funeral director, you had to be an embalmer. But you could be licensed funeral director prior to that only. And so what happened is somebody that might be a funeral director, and I actually had a gentleman that worked for me that was a licensed funeral director, and he inadvertently allowed his license to lapse. Tried to renew them, and the state board told him, and he was 72 years old, you got to go to mortuary college and become an embalmer first. You know, it's kind of like you let your license, driver's license, expire. You don't forget how to drive. It's just a technicality of being able to renew the license. Be glad to answer any questions.
All right.
Since I don't have a conflict of interest with this here, I'd make a motion to pass at the proper time.
Well, I don't see any other questions. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion other than the fact that the point you raised, that nobody's put in a bill to go back to the division. Some people want to be a funeral director, but don't have any stomach for doing the embalming.
Exactly.
And when that was changed years ago, you know, I've always heard rumors that a lot of these boards are up there not necessarily for the good of the industry or for the good of looking after the public, but more about looking after the profession themselves. So at some point, do you think we could see that bill coming forward?
We hope to, and if we can find a good vehicle, maybe a Cadillac that we can attach it to, might get it to work.
Mr.
Very
Chairman,
good.
I think we have a vehicle right here.
I'm not sure that this committee wants to be here that long today, but we can always take out a dot or something and let it come back to us at some point. But that being said, we have a motion and we have a question. Number 18.
Oh, no, I don't have a question.
All righty. We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any further discussion, any questions, any amendments? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes clearly have it.
Thank
And you actually may be the first bill that's come through this committee in the last few years that Dr. Williams did not decide to question. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We'll pass this
Thanks
on
to our good friend.
former Governor Garner and let him be happy over this one.
Very good.
Thank-
And
Who is carrying it? Will you carry it?
Yeah, it seems like it might be complex enough for me to handle.
I believe you can handle it now.
very good. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Good,
Appreciate it.
good to
Thank
have you
committee.
come back to visit with us.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. It was like being at homecoming.
Very good. All right, last but not least, House Resolution 1283, and I'll present that from the podium if the committee doesn't mind. Very simply, y'all remember last week we passed a vape registry bill out of this committee, passed out of the House on Thursday. Because of the intricacies of this business, a lot of things weren't put into that registry last week, such as a lot of these vape stores make their own vapes. It almost reminded me, as I had learned after the fact, it was almost like the old-fashioned tobacco stops when people used to smoke pipes, and they would blend pipe tobaccos and stuff. Well, they blend these vape products. But there's a lot of things, there's a lot of different parts to this, and this would create a study committee on the safety and the consumer protection of nicotine vapor products. And it's a standard resolution. I believe it's 5 members appointed by the Speaker for 5 days. Questions? Number 16.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure you know what I'm going to ask. Can we not do the whole thing, not just vaping? Because in my opinion, this is a huge problem, and vaping is just a tiny, tiny part of it. And the things that they're blending, people are smoking. They're not necessarily putting it in a vape. So can we do the study committee to study everything?
I'm sure whoever chairs that committee could enlarge that to look at CDB products and stuff like that.
All the
if they're
deltas.
sold in a vape store.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Vaping, smoking, eating.
Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question goes back to Representative Hutchinson. If you were to look at lines 13 through 15, would that cover what your expansion would be, or are you suggesting that we amend it to include what you're talking about?
I mean, it could fall under other, but it would be, I think, more clear if you put all, I would say Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, but I'm sure they're going to come up with other deltas if we do that. But right now, those are the 3.
Other is broad. Other is broad.
I think there's a,
No, there you go.
I think,
Today, but I'm saying, well, y'all
Well, the reason this resolution was drafted before we said anything else was because we didn't think that vape register could be prepared. But some of us had to spend that whole Saturday getting something worked out from the original introduction of the bill, and this is what we were going to do. After the fact, I think this needs to move forward to study the vaping. Now, whoever chairs this committee, they could look at all the others. And secondly, I think that there is resolutions to do studies of the CDB products. All right, number 29.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion.
All right. I don't see any other questions. This is the appropriate time, and we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Now, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Now, before the committee gets away from us, I'm going to start assigning bills that have come in. We've got quite a few bills come from the Senate. A lot of them on professional licensing. I think Senator Walker is single-handedly just about, he's about made the limit on bills, on licensing and such. But I want to give the committee fair warning. We have a bill in our, in the breast of this committee that deals with nursing. And it deals with nursing anesthetists and such. And such. I will tell you that that is going to be a ringtail debate. We normally don't have MAG come to this committee unless they want to meddle with something, ain't none of their business. But it appears to me that they're going to make this one their business because they do have an interest, I think, as do the nurse anesthetists. Now, that being said, I'm going to be using the special committee. And I'm going to be adding some folks because the special committee was never designed for something that is this big of an issue. I'm going to be adding some members to that. Now, if there's anybody on this committee that don't want to be added, please tell me in private afterwards because you don't want to be put in a spot. But I'm looking for some of the committee members that can listen to both sides of this argument and make some decisions based on the arguments that are given. And that being said, the only thing I can tell you for certainty is this gentleman right here is going to be chairing that subcommittee. And there'll be several more that's going to be asked to be on that committee. But if you have a compulsion not to be on that committee, please let me know in private. And that being said, this meeting is now adjourned.